So, I think it's important for us to understand and important for anybody seeing this and watching this to know who you are, to know bigger than, the head coach Division I basketball, bigger than, former player Division I basketball, but to know intently, who is Coach Dedrique Taylor.
Yeah, it's weird. Everybody addresses me as a head coach and head coach this, and I'm thinking and looking around like, who are you talking to? Who are you talking about? It's just me. But I think I'm driven by maybe a different outcome. I want people to experience me and say that I contributed to helping them get better, helping them gain a version of success. I'm driven by that. I'm infatuated by success. I'm infatuated and driven by the work that actually leads to that success. And so those two things, that's who I am. That's what I'm about. And that just doesn't happen, or we don't just talk about those things on the court. That's who I am daily. And that's who I try to be. That's who I strive to be, is just, you say you want this outcome. Well, here are the things that it takes. Are you willing to do those things? And if you are, then you can expect a level of or version of success. And literally, that's what drives me. That's who I'm about. Do I know X's and O's? Sure. Do I have a lot to learn? Sure. But at the end of the day, I'm going to give you all of the effort, all of the energy that I have, so that you can experience a version of success. And that's, in a nutshell, I think that's who I am.
Being infatuated with success. I often tell people I hate to lose more than I love to win. That's just, success is that important to me, and winning is that important to me. And setting goals and setting objectives. I tell everybody, when I'm consulting or whatever we're working on, I say I want to begin with the end in mind, and let's reverse engineer it to reach that goal of success. So it's awesome to hear that about you. What would you say, or how much would you attribute that to your personal playing career and your time you spent at the junior college level? We talk a lot about telling kids to run their own race and not get too hung up in, hey, that kid's a 4-star, this kid's a 5-star, or high majors are recruiting him, and I think I'm better than him. We've got a lot of guys who get caught up in the rankings, and they get wrapped up in what everybody else's race looks like around them versus running their own race. And what would you say, how much of your perception of success and the way you attack each day and the way you work to get other people better, how much would you attribute that to your journey and your path from playing at the junior college level and experiencing some early on adversity and being able to overcome that to make it to the Division I level?
Yeah, I think, I was really, really fortunate, but I'll start with this. Everybody has a dream and everybody has aspirations of being the best, right? Like being on ESPN and being on this and being on that, being a 5-star recruit. And not everybody is going to be able to accomplish that. And that doesn't determine or define success either. There's success that can be had all kinds of ways. And so I would say, don't be distracted by those things. Don't get caught up in those things. And it's really easy to do so, but be, in my opinion, be driven by, like you mentioned, the race that you run, your race. And my race, sure, like I said, I wanted to be a Division I athlete, whether it's football or basketball, it doesn't matter. I wanted to accomplish these things, but my race took me down the route of a junior college. Kings River took me to Kings River, which was super duper impactful for me in terms of setting the foundation and growing the foundation that had already been set. And so I would encourage everybody to pay attention to the things that are important, like COVID. One of the things everybody talks about is all the distraction of COVID, and don't get distracted in that. Get caught up in the work ethic. Still, you can work extremely hard, and you're going to have an opportunity. When that opportunity comes, are you prepared for that opportunity to be your best? And so what if they rank you as a 2-star or 3-star? Who cares? There's a multiple 3-star, 2-star athletes that are in the NBA, and there are also that are not in the NBA in terms of walking around, but they still experience a level of success. And my thing is just, don't get caught up in all of the distraction and the minutia that other people say and or do. Be driven and caught up by being the best version of yourself day in and day out. I heard this saying in terms of act the way you want to be, and soon you will be the way you act. And that to me, just from a habit standpoint, start to form those habits. And you have a choice. You can listen and be distracted by everything everybody else says and use that as, boom, boom, worry about it. Or you can say, you know what, I'm going to use that as motivation, and I'm going to find what's meant for me. It's out there. It's just up to us to find it.
Absolutely. And you act the way you want to be. I think that that's important. That's impactful for not only, players that are hearing the answer to that question that might be, a little bit, set back or frustrated or irritated by where their recruiting process is happening, but coaches as well. If you want to be a head coach, act like a head coach, carry yourself like a head coach, and assume those roles that eventually, and once again, I always tell everybody, reverse engineer it. Think about what you want it to look like, and then do the work now to reach that point. So with that in mind, while you were playing at UC Davis, at what point did you identify that, hey, coaching is something that I have a passion for? That's kind of the direction I want to head in. I want to be able to impact and help people along the journey that I'm going on here myself.
Yeah, it's really weird, man. Like as a player, I had no idea I wanted to coach. In fact, I did not want to coach. I wanted to stay away from coaching as much as I could, because you have to understand, my dad was a coach. He was a high school coach, and he was actually my coach all the way up until I started playing AAU ball, which was in the 7th or 8th grade. But even after I played AAU ball, went to high school or junior high school, my dad was a coach, and then was my coach. And then when I went to high school, I played for another guy, I played JV as a freshman, and the varsity coach ended up getting fired. And who did they hire? My dad. And so he was also my high school coach. And so that just, I wanted to get away from that. And so I had my eyes set on being an agent. Again, to use some of the words that you use in terms of helping people through my experience and my perspective, I wanted to be a coach within the agent standpoint, from this standpoint, saying to your prospective clients, hey, I'm actually going to be your workout guy. It's not going to be this guy or that guy. Hey, we're going to study the film, and I'm going to be that guy. And so that was my niche, so to speak. And I was able to do that for a year, and it just didn't work out. One thing my dad always says to me is, you have your name and word. And anytime those two things get ruined or start to get ruined, you're in trouble. And I started to realize that and understand that. And that's when I started to see my route to coaching and the path open up, so to speak. And so I was working as an agent, and I went to Cal State Dominguez during the recruiting time and saw Bob Williams. Well, Bob, when I walked the gym, was all the way at the far end. And then literally there was 4 courts going, AAU games. There was a bunch of coaches, a bunch of parents. But it took me 45 minutes to get from the door all the way to coach, because I was saying hello and I knew all these guys. And, and at that point, Coach Williams looked at me and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, what do you mean? I'm coming to say hello." He's like, no. "What are you doing? Get your behind," and he didn't say behind, he said another word. He said, "Get your behind where you belong. Get over here." And that was actually that was the day that I decided that I wanted to coach and I needed to coach. And that's literally how it happened. At UC Davis as a player, I was attracted to the glitz and glamour of being a sports agent, so to speak. But we were able to embark on another path, and that path became coaching.
That's amazing. That's amazing that you had a different path, but you understood that your plan and God's plan aren't always, they're not always on the same street. And sometimes the streets don't even intersect, right?
Yes. Say that again. Say that again. Please. Say that again.
And it's important that there's people that are placed in our lives that are there to pull us back towards our calling, and there to deliver the message when sometimes we can't hear it, or we're not hearing it, from God himself. He puts other people in our lives to direct us in the right, pathway, in the right direction. And you talked a little bit about, some of the influences that you've had. I mean, obviously, working for Herb Sindak, being around some brilliant basketball minds. Talk to me a little bit about some of the guidance and direction you've had. Obviously, your dad as a coach, that was your first coach, and that's the first guidance and direction. But having these other guys around you in the business, talk to me a little bit about the importance of the mentorship and the importance of the direction and guidance.
Yeah, I was really fortunate, with those opportunities. I was telling a guy I've known, Marvin Menzies, who's a former head coach at New Mexico State and UNLV. I've known him since I was 18 or 19 years old. He recruited me. And Bob Williams is another guy who I played for. In my first year in the Big West, he was a long-time, very, very successful coach at UC Santa Barbara. And I'm looking down the sideline. This is in the middle of the game. I'm looking down the sideline and I'm saying, dang, I played for him and here I am coaching against him. So, very, very fortunate from that standpoint. And then there was a group of guys, Gary Stewart, who was at Washington State at the time. David Carter was at Nevada at the time. And Marty Wilson, I think he may have been an assistant at San Diego at the time of one of his many stops. And, for me, I used to walk in the gym and get there early as I could and try to see, okay, if I had seen one of those guys. And I would literally sit up next to them and watch how they went about their business. I wanted to socialize and hang out with them, but I was more driven by how are they and why are they successful? Why are you taking that note on that kid? What does that mean? Why are you sitting here? What does that mean? Just different things. Trent Johnson was another guy in terms of the way that he dressed, how he carried himself. He was very, very, very professional from a standpoint of any time that he went on a high school or junior college campus, he always had on a sport coat. And so for me, it led me to say, hey, anytime I go on campus, I want to make sure that I'm dressed the right way, slacks, a polo, so that these kids or these young ladies or whomever it is, they can see what that looks like versus some of the other influences and some of the other things that we're seeing on a day-to-day basis. Hey, I can dress a certain way, and being dressed that certain way, I have to act a certain way, and maybe I can get these certain things. And so, the influences, I could literally sit here and just talk about just them, and it would probably take up the whole interview. But I was very fortunate from this standpoint of not only were they willing to give me information, but I sought that information out. And then not only did I seek that information out, I actually did something with it. I applied it to whatever it was that I was trying to accomplish. And I think that became a difference for me.
That's awesome. And I think that's a key point there is not only seeking the information out, right? Like a lot of times, people reach out and say, hey, mentor me on this, or can you help me with this? Or, what do you think about this? But you have to be able to, number one, seek with intent to learn, and then learn with intent to apply. So hearing that, you took those things and you took those things from these men and you applied it to your career, that's huge. And, you had the opportunity to coach a modern. You started at UC Davis. That's where your first assistant job was. Coached at Loyola Marymount, Portland State, Nevada, Arizona State, and now you're the head coach at Cal State Fullerton. So your career has taken a journey of starting at your alma mater at the lowest level, right, from a standpoint of being that assistant on the totem pole, right, to now being the head coach, being the guy that everybody's looking to make those decisions, right? Like no, they're not. They may give you advice, but they're not making decisions. You went from being that guy that say, hey, coach, why are you doing it this way, to having to answer that question. Talk to me a little bit about navigating through the different seats, because each place you went, you moved down a seat, right? You were associate head coach at Arizona State. So talk to me a little bit about the difference in the seats and how having an opportunity to sit in each of those seats has prepared you for success now as a head coach at Cal State Fullerton.
I think more importantly, the appreciation for sitting in those seats. And the example I'll give you is at UC Davis. I worked for a guy by the name of Brian Fogel, and he was an assistant when I was a player, and he became the head coach after Bob Williams moved on. And he welcomed me back with open arms, and it was the best of everything. Like I could do everything. I had scouts. I could go out and recruit, everything. But it's so funny. My desk I didn't have a desk. My chair was in the corner because we had two other full-time assistants. We had their desk and their chair, but my desk was a chair. And I would come in there and literally I would work and we would work together and we would do our own thing. But that to me just I don't know, man, it just signified a little bit of the learning process that we endured. You know, nowadays I think people watch or guys watch on TV and they say, "Oh, I can do that," and they think I should be able to do that. Whereas for me, I had to learn and earn my way up through the ladder. And what I mean by that is okay, I had a desk. I mean, a chair. I didn't have a desk, so I left there and I went to Loyola Marymount. And at Loyola Marymount, I was the equipment manager. And so I understood what that meant. I understood, hey, get to the airport early, get everybody's plane tickets, make sure the bacon is crisp and we have breakfast in the morning. You know, those little nuances, they became what I worked at. And so now as you move up from seat to seat and you start to appreciate where you've been and you look at where you're going, where you're trying to go, you just appreciate those things at a different level. And so now as a head coach, when you tell a guy, hey, we need so-and-so jump ropes, well, you know how long that's going to take or about how long, what that looks like because you've done it. And I was really, really fortunate to have that pathway, being able to do those things and do some of the nuances and do some smaller things that make the bigger things happen. You know, and I was also really, really fortunate to receive this advice from Morgan Wooten, who's a big-time national high school coach. He's had numerous Division I athletes. And so he said to me this, he said, don't be driven by money, be driven by success. Success, advantage, or taking advantage of success and being driven by success, the money will eventually follow you. And that has always, that he said that to me at Portland State, and that has always rung in my mind. That's always driven me. It's like, I'm not chasing the money, I'm chasing success. And so I left Portland State and I went to Nevada. And so we're interviewing, and that's a whole nother story. We're interviewing and I'm thinking, you know, yeah, I'll take the job. Well, Coach Fox hadn't even said the salary. And he was like, don't you want to know how much I'm going to pay you? I was like, oh yeah. How much is that? Okay, cool. I'll take it. You know, I was just more excited about the opportunity. The money was great. And yes, you need money, but it was more of putting myself in a situation where I could be successful. And that success led to the other opportunity, which led to another opportunity, which led to me being here now as a head coach. Makes no money now.
That's awesome perspective. And it's awesome that, you know, I tell everybody when you've walked through the shoes of the person that you're instructing and guiding, it gives you a better perspective, not only to be able to give them guidance, but also to be empathetic to, you know, what it is that they're going through or what it is that they may be dealing with or what that situation really entails and looks like. So it's really, I think that it's important that you've had each of those opportunities to learn along the way. Sure. And I think that probably helped you out quite a bit this last year dealing with, you know, COVID and the things that happened within the industry. You know, we all, no matter what role you played within this industry, there was an adjustment that had to be made, from, you know, recruiting to coaching to, you know, just maintaining your mental well-being and the mental well-being of your staff and your players. Talk to me a little bit about the adjustments that you had to make, and the adjustments that you guys made as a team to first and foremost make sure that your guys were good, and that they were able to, you know, make it through a very trying emotional year, but also to still be able to get out on the floor and compete.
Yeah, it was really different. I think the biggest thing that I've learned as a head coach is the importance and the significance of learning how to pivot. And I'll take it back to a comment that you made. You know, when you want to see God laugh, show him your plan, right? And so you develop and you have all these plans for your team, and you're organized, and you think, okay, we're going to get to school and we're going to do this, this, and this, and then they say, hey, that's not going to happen because this person's tested positive or that. So you have to get used to the pivoting, and take it for what it's worth. You know, you can get mad. Or you can say, hey, you know what? We're going to adjust, and we're going to be better for it. one of the biggest adjustments is that they took our weight room from being inside and it was outside. And so guys had to live in the weight room outside, and lift outside, and what that presented and what that meant for them. And no, we didn't get what we normally would get out of the weight room, but we just were willing to make the best out of a bad situation, make the best out of a situation. I don't want to call it bad because in a lot of ways, and this is a different story, in a lot of ways, COVID saved my life personally. But from a professional standpoint, practice was different. When we wanted to practice these things, I couldn't yell at guys for a long period of time or hold them accountable to a certain degree because I was worried about where they were mentally, were they in practice, or were they worried about, their home, or were they worried about being exposed, something simple as worried about, hey, are we really going to play tomorrow? Because we suffered those consequences as well, where two different instances where we're the day of shoot around, like we're 5 minutes from loading up the bus to go to, I think, San Diego. And I had to go in and tell my team we're not making that trip because San Diego tested positive, to a shoot around. We're actually in shoot around. And the trainer came on and said, hey, coach, we're, the other team, they tested positive. We're not playing. To also enduring that from ourselves, our own selves testing positive. So, just trying to take it for what it's worth and trying to be present and be vigilant of others that weren't present. And how do you get them present? How do you deal with learning how to embrace the suck, as I would say? Most people don't do that. They don't, to your words, they spend a lot of time identifying the problem. Well, the problem is it sucks. Okay, embrace it, but still, how are we going to be productive because of that? And so that's what we've gone through. That's what we've tried to do. And we've learned a ton. But most significantly and most importantly, we've probably learned how to pivot and go in a different direction, thinking or planning for that direction, but having to go in a different direction.
That's awesome. And I want to touch on something you said. You said COVID saved your life. Now, as the world was dealing with the global pandemic, you discovered that you had a brain tumor, which required surgery. Talk to me a little bit about navigating through that, the positive outlook that you still maintain and that you maintained throughout that, and also how that process has changed your mindset and your outlook on life.
Yeah, it totally has changed, everything. The year before we got into COVID, I spent the entire season from November probably up until the time that I had surgery with these massive, and I mean massive headaches. And at first it came on, I thought they were, sinus headaches or whatever reasons. Turns out COVID happens. We shut down. There's nothing we can do. So I finally say, hey, I'm gonna figure out what this is, going on and causing these headaches. Well, lo and behold, it was a brain tumor. I didn't know it, but it was a brain tumor. And God saw fit to basically show me myself in those situations, in this particular situation. So you have the racial injustice, you have the shutdown of the COVID, you have all of these things happening, and people are asking me personally, how are you going to respond? What are you going to do? And so it came to me, God spoke to me really probably about 3:30 in the morning of June 11th, which I was scheduled to have surgery on June 11th, and they were going to come and get me at 5, and they did. But I was wide awake at 2:30 in the morning, and God spoke to me, and he gave me this, and he said, hey, you right there, you, talking to you. This is the way that I want you to respond moving forward. I want you to respond out of a space of love. There's so much hatred going on around you. And I'm not asking you to control the hatred. I'm asking you to control your response to said hatred and respond in a space out of love. You can't control or do anything about the hate. It is what it is. But you can respond out of love. And so I've chosen to do those things, and that love has allowed me to maintain a level of productivity. And so those two things came to me, and that is the way that I try to live daily. I don't always do it because I'm not perfect. Yes, I get mad. Yes, I get frustrated. Yes, I cuss a lot. Don't tell nobody I said that. But those are emotions that I'm learning to control and come from a space of love and come from a space of, can we still find a way at the end of the day to be productive? No, we didn't have a preseason. We didn't play anybody in preseason. But yeah, there were a 14-day quarantine, and the school is saying we can come out of the 14-day quarantine at day number 12, practice or walk through on a Thursday, and then drive up on a Friday to play the team who won our conference, Santa Barbara, play them Friday, play them Saturday, and then come home. Yeah, that's not ideal, but it is what it is. Embrace the suck and find a way to get better, and we did. We went up there, we got our bell rung the first night. But the second night, we took them to task, and we showed ourselves that we're capable of doing X, Y, and Z, and this is what it looks like. And so, long story short, man, everybody says this negatively and that negatively about COVID, but I would venture to say, and it literally saved my life, because I don't know without the shutdown, had I would have gone to the doctor, would I have sought out a doctor's opinion? No, I wouldn't have. I would continue to move on and recruit and try to figure out these things. And so what COVID did is it provided a level of clarity for me. Don't be distracted by all of the other things that are going on. Be distracted and be driven, not distracted, be driven by love and productivity.
Well, and I think, and this isn't something that I anticipated us talking about today. I obviously want to talk to you about navigating and dealing with the tumor and the surgery and the recovery. But you touched on something that, I feel remiss if I didn't mention or touch. You probably wouldn't have gotten the care or gone and seen the doctor had you not have been shut down due to COVID. This last year, we've lost a lot of people across the country, but more specifically within the coaching fraternity, and most specifically within the coaching fraternity of Black men, we've lost some really great leaders. And it causes me to wonder, and it causes me to want to ask you the question, what do you think can change as far as us having more care, taking more care of ourselves, both mentally and physically, getting in and making those annual checkups, not allowing the time constraints or the tasks of the job to keep us from, you say you've been dealing with the headache for a year or so, right? And part of that is the nature, as Black men, we tend to be, we'll be all right. I don't need to go see a doctor. Let me take the sinus medicine. It's just a sinus headache. I got to coach tomorrow. I don't have time to go see the doctor. But quite honestly, if you didn't take the time, you wouldn't be here having this conversation with me. So talk to me a little bit about what we can do better as Black men, and especially Black men within a coaching industry that requires, we've got July Live period coming up. I'll be on, one side of it, with my team at EYBL, and you'll be on the other side evaluating. Sure. Those are 12, 14, sometimes 16, 20-hour days, right? Sure. What can we do differently to better sustain ourselves and to better, put ourselves in positions to continue to be healthy and continue to lead better lives from the standpoint of getting those checkups or, getting the care that we need?
Yeah, I that's a powerful question from this standpoint. Is customarily, culturally, like you said, we don't. I never saw my dad go to the doctor. Are you kidding me? Like, no, we got something to do. We got stuff to do. And I would say this, self-awareness is the number one predictor for success. What can we do? We can be more self-aware and realize that if you are not present, guess what? That thing is still going to go on. The work is still going to be there. The tournament is still going to happen. Recruiting is still going to go on. So why be there and in pain is the question you have to ask yourself. And you have to be okay. You have to be comfortable with realizing, hey, I don't feel well today. And then seek out why you don't feel well. How can you find out, or how can you fix said problem? Be aware. Sometimes it's just a little simple headache. Sometimes it is just a little simple stomach ache. But sometimes it can be a little simple stomach ache that leads to some form of bad health or brain tumor surgery. I think the biggest thing is just being more aware of who and how you feel, how you interact with everybody. And then not only being aware, but also having enough gumption to say, you know what, I don't feel well, and then call somebody, a doctor, and say, these are my symptoms. I don't feel well because of X, Y, and Z, or I don't feel well and these are my symptoms. Well, I'm a perfect example of what not to do. I would talk to my trainer and I'd say, hey, I got a headache, give me some aspirin, give me some Tylenol. My assistant coach would give me he would say, oh, yeah, I think you have a migraine. Well, I never had migraines, but I was like, okay, cool. As long as just give me some pills, as long as that's going to help me get to the next day. Well, as you and I know, medicine is only able to just do that. It provides a Band-Aid. It doesn't necessarily fix the problem. And so just being aware, and then doing something about it, and then also being secure enough to understand and to know that stuff's going to happen. Things are going to go on with or without you. I went to a funeral service this past Saturday of a guy who's the brother of the pastor that I grew up in their church, right? Like literally, I was a little kid growing up in their church, and there were so many things that happened, throughout that. But I went through to his service, and I only bring that up just to say that he led a full life, and he was in pain for 20 years, but he still led a good life. He had a stroke, but he was still able to have an impact. And so if we can eliminate those things, strokes and those things, do that for yourself. You deserve that, but more importantly, the other people deserve that. Because here's the thing, he's gone. He's pain-free. But we as other people, we're still stuck here. We're still experiencing these things. So why not try to take care of yourself would be my message, and provide yourself with some type of relief.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I think you're right. I mean, it's cultural. One of those things where, my dad, I don't think I ever saw him go to the doctor up until, now as he's gotten older, and now those visits are happening way more frequently. And it causes you to wonder or ask the question, would those visits be less frequent in his 70s had they been more frequent in his 30s, 40s, and 50s? So I think that's a very powerful message. Definitely, you left me a lot there to really marinate on. Self-awareness being the number one predictor for success. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to spin in a little bit of a different direction, or pivot, as you spoke earlier. You guys at Fullerton, you've had 3 NCAA tournament appearances in the history of the program, one of which was yours in 2018. In 2018, you won the conference tournament championship. As you identify what the barometer for success looks like in your eyes, not necessarily, what has experienced in the past or what's happened here in the past or what hasn't happened, but your definition of success, what are some of the goals and things that you have placed on this group moving forward, being self-aware and understanding, who you are and what you're capable of doing? What are some of the things you're expecting out of this group leading into this season?
Yeah, this group leading to this season is really funny that you asked that question, because 2-3 weeks ago I asked this group a question. I said, I brought the trophy in and we met, and I said, how many of you guys have experienced this trophy? And I didn't say trophy, I was pointing to it like the Big West Conference Championship. How many of you guys have experienced it? None of them raised their hand. I said, great, that's good. I said 2 things. Number one, your experience and perspective doesn't lead to this. So you need to listen a little clearer and follow directions, number one. Number 2, I'm telling you, as good as I am standing here, that you have enough talent in this room to be able to get one of those things. But the stickler is how connected our team chemistry, how connected is that talent? How willing is that talent to make necessary sacrifices that it's going to take when adversity hits, for us to stay committed to communication, building trust, building relationships that will probably last on and on and on as time goes. But the one thing I said to this group, I said, you have a chance to go down in history, because the guys that have this trophy, it doesn't matter, come hell or high water, they will be a part of Cal State Fullerton's history. You have that same opportunity. And so we've really, really tried to hone in on some of the things that lead to that. And talent is not one of them. We have enough talent. It's not like the NBA where we can trade free agent. Our group is our group, right? We have enough talent. But that talent, if it doesn't have a level of connectivity, if it doesn't have a level of trust, if it doesn't have a level of chemistry and a level of communication when we hit adverse situations, we won't get this. And those are the things that I think have come out of 2018, that have even come out of 2019 when we went back to the championship game. Those are the things that have allowed us, or we've learned from 2 years in a row now, we've finished seventh. Those things, take that talent and holding it accountable in these areas, not in a talent standpoint, but from a communication standpoint, from a trust standpoint, connectivity standpoint. I watched the Phoenix Suns, and they're killing people. And I wasn't a believer. I'm not a Phoenix Suns fan. I'm never ever going to be anything but a Laker fan. So that's a whole other story. But I'm watching Phoenix and I'm listening to these guys, Charles Barkley, and I'm listening to these guys, Reggie Miller, and all these commentators. And the number one thing is they talk about not Chris Paul, not his leadership. They talk about how connected this group is and how willing they are to stay connected and how much they fight for that connectivity, possession by possession by possession. When you look at them play, it's really actually simple, but it's not easy what they're doing. It's actually simple, but it's not easy when you break down the fact that, yeah, they're required to be in the corners. Yes, they're required to get in the middle ball screen, but if that middle ball screen doesn't come and allow Chris Paul to get downhill, and that guy who said it doesn't become a rim threat every single time, it's not as potent as we've seen over the course of the last two series. And so I've probably gone on a tangent in which I can. And if you didn't, you now know that I can do that. But those are some of the things that we've learned. And really, in a nutshell, we just trying to keep things simple. Just trying to keep things simple so that when the choice comes about, we make the right, easy choice time after time after time after time after time. And that becomes consistent.
That's awesome. And you've given me so many points throughout this conversation to really, and I tell people all the time, right? I learn something from every single person I interview. There's always something I take away, at least one thing. And in this situation, I've been jotting down notes. I've taken away quite a bit from you. And I knew coming into this, like I said, I've been following you for forever, it seems like. And I knew that there was going to be a lot that I could take away and a lot that I could learn and a lot that hopefully others watching can take away. I tell people all the time, if you can just learn one thing or take one thing away from each given situation and apply it to where you're at, you're not always going to completely see another person's perspective and be like, yeah, that 100% makes sense. Or I can take all of that and apply it directly to this, but there's going to be bits and pieces that you can take away. And I think you provided us a whole lot of that today. So I want to ask you, is there anything that I didn't ask you about you or about your journey that you'd like to mention and you'd like somebody to take away from this conversation?
I think it's been said, throughout the course of time that we've been together here talking. But I want to reiterate the fact that, come hell or high water, be bent on finding a way to be successful and appreciating and realizing the learning lessons in losses, in not being successful. Don't just throw those opportunities away. Don't just take those for granted. Those are a part of the process. They're a part of you being who you eventually want to be. And so learn from those things. Those are, ironically, in my opinion, way more important than actual success. When we went to the NCAA tournament, they asked me that question, what does it mean? What it meant to me at that time, and it still means that all the time that we tried and we failed, and we've come up with this solution to lead this group to that championship. All the times that people don't see you doing work, take homage in that, take privilege in that, and knowing that you are putting in the work to eventually achieve a level of success. and don't just throw those opportunities away and say they're missed or we lost. No, there's a lot to be learned, and I guarantee you, if you look around the country, look around the world, and some of the greatest minds, some of the richest people that we know, they have failed multiple times. But now we know them as some of the richest, some of the smartest people. But I trust you, I guarantee you, they failed more when they first started, and they learn from it, and they become better for it. And so I would just stick there and stay with that, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you. I appreciate your time more than you know. I think that this is going to be huge and greatly impactful. Like I said, for wherever somebody's at within their journey, whether it be a young assistant coach that, is in that first seat and they want to make it down to the seat that you're in, right? Like, I think that this is going to provide a little bit of motivation and inspiration for them that, you were an equipment manager, you know the steps, it's not, you don't have to jump right into being that, we've seen guys, this year, there's a high school coach I saw become a head coach this year, right?
Sure.
There's another high school coach, and Mike's done an amazing job at DeMatha, but he's associate head coach at Virginia Tech. So for some guys, from perspective, right, from their vantage point, seeing somebody go from high school to the mountaintop, so to speak, and skip those steps, they may be feeling a little bit, they may be feeling a little bit down, or maybe feeling a little bit discouraged. So to hear your story and going from here with having a desk, or having a chair but no desk, right, to being an equipment manager, and now the head coach at Cal State Fullerton, I think that that's a very powerful and impactful story. Your story of survival, your story of taking the adversity that life handed you, whether it be your knee injury and having to have surgery when you're at the junior college level, and coming back from that and battling back and saying, okay, you're telling me 12 months, I'm gonna get it done in 9, right? Or overlooking the headache and writing it off as a migraine or sinus headache, but finding out that it's a tumor and having surgery, but saying, you know what, not only am I not going to let that stop me, I'm not going to let that hinder my path that I'm on. I'm going to use that. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to apply those lessons to my life on a daily basis. So, there's so much positivity. There's so many lessons that can be, taken from your life, from your journey, and from, what we packed into a short conversation here today. So, man, I appreciate you more than you know. Your kids that play for you are blessed to have you. Your coaches that are working underneath you, you have an opportunity to be, that same mentor that Marvin Mendez was to you, or that Herb Sendek was to you. So once again, man, I think that these conversations, I don't expect, I don't expect millions of people to see them, but I expect the right person to see them. I expect, somebody that's in a spot that needs to hear the message. They're going to find the message. So I appreciate you delivering that message to us here today.
Definitely. I appreciate the platform, and super thankful for you providing the space for this information to get out, and this perspective and my experience to get out. And I hope that it is encouraging to somebody else, and they can take it and run with it and make it better, because that's what it's about. It's about being better. Like literally, my staff always laughs at me, and I say this all the time. It's actually morbid, but it's the truth. Everybody has a year that they're born. Everybody has a year that they die, right? But in there's a little dash. And what's important to me is that you are better from the day that you were born to the day that you die. Be better. Don't just exist. Be better. That's what that attracts me. That excites me. That motivates me. That inspires me. Whatever you want to say. Don't just sit and just be. Just be better. That excites me. I get motivated behind that. Guys, I already worked out this morning with our group, but I'm excited for them tomorrow because they're going to get this energy.
I love it, Coach. I love it, Coach. Well, we're living in that dash right now. And the goal is for everybody to be better. And I appreciate you utilizing some time today to help make them better. So we'll be following Cal State Fullerton this season. We'll be cheering for you, and if there's anything I can do for you, let me know.
All righty, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks. Take care.